In the summer of 1943, in the heart of Rome, a single moment shocked everyone who saw it. A young German bride, only weeks married, was struck by her husband in the middle of a crowded street. The reason was not jealousy or betrayal. It was because of a tattoo. Not just any tattoo, but the image of the Virgin Mary inked on her skin. Witnesses remembered the silence that followed. Soldiers stood frozen. Local Romans whispered prayers. The woman covered herself, but it was too late. The Virgin had already been seen. To understand what happened that day, we must return to Rome in 1943. The city was heavy with fear. German forces had occupied its streets since the spring. Soldiers patrolled every corner. Curfews and shortages shaped daily life. In this tense atmosphere, small details could change lives. A word, a look, or in this case, a mark on the body. The woman's name was Anna. She was 22 years old, born in Munich, and raised in a strict Catholic household. She met her husband, a German radio operator, in the months before the war. Family letters suggest she was soft-spoken, a woman who loved to draw and carried a silver locket with a picture of her mother. To most, she seemed ordinary, but Anna carried a secret. On her upper back, hidden beneath her dress, was a tattoo of the Virgin Mary holding the infant Jesus. It was not large, only the size of a hand, but it was done with remarkable care. The Virgin's face was delicate, her eyes lowered, and many who later saw the tattoo swore that the ink seemed to shimmer under candlelight. Where Anna received this tattoo is still debated. A letter from her cousin, found in 1958 among church papers, claimed she had it done in secret while still in Munich. Another account suggests it was added later during her brief stay in Rome. What is certain is that she kept it hidden until her husband discovered it on their wedding night. The man's reaction was violent. Witnesses from their building in Trastevere reported shouts, then the sound of breaking glass. Neighbors later told investigators they heard the soldier accuse his wife of dishonoring him. One line repeated in several testimonies is chilling. "You carry Rome on your skin, not me, not Germany, Rome." This first moment of discovery marked the beginning of Anna's downfall. A small but powerful clue to what followed was discovered decades later. In 1971, while restoring parish records from Santa Maria in Trastevere, archivists found a folded letter tucked inside a prayer book. It was written by Anna's cousin, dated July 1943. The letter reads, "Anna says the Virgin follows her. She whispers that the image is not paint, but alive. I told her to stop. Such talk is dangerous. But she only smiled and said the Virgin waits for her in Rome." This single line raises a larger question. Was the tattoo only a sign of faith, or something more? A symbol of defiance, or even a vision carved into flesh? The breaking point came days later. Anna and her husband walked through a market near the Tiber. It was hot, and she carried her shawl loosely. A gust of wind lifted the fabric, and the tattoo was visible to those standing nearby. Several accounts describe what happened next. An Italian vendor remembered gasps, then laughter from local women who crossed themselves. A fellow German soldier said the husband turned pale, then struck her hard across the face. The bride stumbled, her shawl falling away. For a brief moment, all could see the Virgin Mary on her back. Some described the image as ordinary. Others swore the Virgin's eyes seemed to shine. A priest who passed through the square later wrote in his diary, "It was not a drawing, it was an icon." News of the incident spread quickly. In occupied Rome, rumors were as dangerous as bullets. Some whispered that Anna was cursed. Others claimed she was blessed. To her husband, however, the tattoo was shame, a mark that tied his wife not to him, but to Rome, to the Catholic faith, and perhaps to resistance itself. What made the case worse was timing. In July 1943, German authority in Italy was fragile. Mussolini had just been removed from power. The Vatican walked a careful line, trying not to provoke either side. In this setting, a German bride with a Virgin Mary tattoo became more than a private scandal. It became a symbol. Italian neighbors treated Anna with a mix of pity and fear. A seamstress later testified that Anna asked for cloth thick enough to hide holy eyes. Others said she stopped appearing at the market, hiding indoors except to attend church. The husband grew harsher. Records from a military housing office note repeated disturbances in their home. One neighbor wrote in her diary, "We hear her cry at night. He says the Virgin will be cut away, but she prays louder." The strangest part of part one comes from the way people described the tattoo. It was not simply ink. Soldiers who glimpsed it claimed the Virgin's face changed with light. A child in the building told her mother that the Virgin looked at him when Anna passed in the hall. One of the most unsettling accounts comes from an Italian tailor. In a testimony recorded after the war, he claimed Anna visited him to buy dark fabric. As she turned, the tattoo became visible. He swore the eyes of the Virgin followed him as if alive. "I felt judged," he said, "not by her, by the Virgin." These details blur the line between fact and belief. Was the tattoo unusual, or did wartime fear turn an ordinary mark into a living legend? After the assault in the street, the story of Anna's tattoo spread quickly through Rome. In a city filled with hunger, fear, and occupation, gossip was a kind of survival. News traveled faster than food. By the end of the week, many in Trastevere knew about the German bride with the Virgin Mary on her skin. Witnesses outside the market repeated their stories to neighbors, who repeated them again to priests, who passed them on in whispers at confession. Some said the tattoo was simply a show of devotion, a private act of faith that had become public by accident. Others claimed it was a coded sign, a message that Anna was tied to the Italian resistance, using holy symbols against the occupiers. One man, a Roman tailor named Lorenzo, gave a testimony years later that survives in the archives of the Diocese of Rome. He wrote that Anna came into his shop 2 days after the market incident. She asked for heavy black fabric, thick enough to cover the Virgin's eyes. When Lorenzo handed her the cloth, she turned her back for a moment, and he saw the tattoo again. He described the Virgin's face as soft but watchful. "The image judged me," he wrote, "not Anna, the Virgin." Rumors grew stranger with each telling. Some claimed the tattoo moved, that the Virgin blinked. Others said Anna's skin gave off light when she prayed. None of these things were confirmed, but in a city under occupation, belief was often stronger than truth. Records also show Anna sought comfort at a convent near Trastevere. A nun's diary, later collected by Vatican archivists, describes a young German woman who came to the chapel almost every night. She knelt before a statue of the Virgin Mary and prayed for hours, refusing food or water. The nun wrote, "Her back glowed in the candlelight. I do not know if it was the tattoo or something else." The other sisters would not look. The convent tried to protect her, but it could not protect her from her own husband. The husband, a German radio operator, faced his own pressure. Other soldiers mocked him for marrying a woman marked with a Catholic icon. To them, it was weakness. To carry the Virgin on her skin was to carry Rome itself. He could either defend her and risk disgrace among his unit, or accuse her of blasphemy and place the blame on her alone. Testimonies suggest he chose the second path. He reported his wife's tattoo to his superior officer. The words entered military records as marks of idolatry. Soon after, Anna vanished from public life. Neighbors noticed her window shuttered. The cries at night stopped. One Italian woman who lived below them wrote in her wartime diary, "I heard her scream once, and then there was only silence. Days later, he came home alone. His uniform was stained. He did not speak to anyone." Stranger still is the Vatican's role in what followed. Among the restricted files opened only in the late 20th century is a report from July 1943. It refers to an unnamed German bride brought before a small tribunal inside the walls of the Vatican. The accusation, carrying an image of the Virgin Mary in flesh. The file does not give a name, but descriptions match Anna. It notes her youthful age, her German husband serving in occupation forces, and her residence near Trastevere. The tribunal file is thin, only 2 pages, and the second is torn, but one line remains clear. Such marks may not be erased. They remain even when skin is burned. In the post-war years, fragments of Anna's story appeared again and again. Some said they saw her taken into a carriage, escorted by soldiers, though none could agree where. Others swore she was seen days later inside a Vatican hospital wing, her back bandaged, her eyes closed. One priest recalled in his private notes that he saw her pray in a side chapel, her dress open at the shoulders. He claimed the Virgin's face on her back had grown sharper, almost alive. "I felt," he wrote, "that she was not carrying the Virgin. The Virgin was carrying her." German military papers from the same summer provide a different story. In one report, her husband claimed she had been transferred north for medical supervision, but no name is given, no hospital listed. Other German files from that period refer only to domestic disturbance involving non-combatant female. The truth was hidden under stamps, signatures, and vague words. Yet in every version, one detail stayed the same. Anna was no longer with her husband. She had disappeared into the folds of the war, her fate unknown. By autumn of 1943, Anna's story was known across several Roman districts. Children whispered about the bride with the holy tattoo. Italian priests warned parishioners not to speak too loudly for fear of German retaliation. Even some soldiers admitted privately that they had heard of the Virgin Mary tattoo and that they feared what it meant. To some, Anna was a victim, erased by her husband and the authorities. To others, she was a symbol of holy resistance, a woman who carried the Virgin into the very heart of occupation Rome. The story grew larger than the woman herself, and with every retelling, her tattoo became less a mark of ink and more a mark of mystery. When archives were opened after the war, researchers found only fragments about Anna's case. In a Vatican registry, a page listed a German bride married to an operator of radio signals, age 22. The entry stopped there. The next line was torn away. The missing section was not by accident. The torn edge showed knife marks, as if someone had cut it out quickly. On the bottom of the page was a note written in Latin, Memoria non est. There is no memory. A second file was discovered decades later in German military papers. It mentioned a woman removed from Trastevere after reports of religious symbols upon the body. Again, no name. The file was signed by Colonel Weiss, but the space for final transfer was blank. Together, these documents showed something clear. Anna was erased, not lost. Her name was cut from records, her story pushed into rumor. Among the most unsettling pieces of evidence came from the diary of Father Giulio, a priest who worked with the Vatican in the summer of 1943. His diary was found in 1962, inside an old chest during repairs to a chapel wall. He wrote, "She bore the Virgin in flesh. They brought her here. She prayed without fear. I believe she thought the mark was holy, but Rome will not forgive, nor will her husband." The diary does not say what happened next, but the words suggest the Church saw her tattoo not as art, but as something closer to a relic, dangerous, powerful, and best hidden. What followed was a clash of stories. German reports said Anna was sent north. Vatican notes hinted she was treated. Italian diaries claimed she was taken at night. No two stories matched. One nurse, who later testified to the Allied authorities, said she saw a young German woman in a Vatican hospital room. Her back burned. The skin was damaged, but she swore the Virgin's face was still visible under the burns. The holy image would not leave, she said. Other witnesses swore she died. Some claimed she lived on, hidden by nuns in the countryside, and some even claimed she was seen after the war, working quietly in Florence under a false name. No evidence proves any of these versions. But what they show is that Anna became more than a person. She became a mystery no one wanted to solve. The last trace of Anna comes from a German letter discovered in 1998 in private family papers. It was written by her husband. In it, he confessed, "I could not forgive her. She was no longer mine. She was theirs. Every time I looked at her, I saw Rome. I struck her because I could not strike the city." This line changes everything. For her husband, Anna's tattoo was not simply an image. It was Rome itself, carried on the body of a German bride. In a time of war, when identity meant survival, her mark became a symbol he could not control. Today, no grave bears Anna's name. No church lists her among its parishioners. No German record admits she existed. Yet her story lives in the shadows, in torn files, in diary pages, in whispered tales of the bride with the virgin on her back. Some remember her as a victim of cruelty. Others believe she was chosen, carrying a holy image that could not be erased. To this day, the rumor in Trastevere says that on certain nights, if a candle is lit in Santa Maria, a figure kneels in the last pew. And when she turns, the Virgin's eyes shine from her skin. Was it devotion? Was it rebellion? Or was it simply faith in a world at war? We may never know. What we do know is that Anna's tattoo transformed her life. It turned a private mark of belief into a public scandal, a weapon in the struggle between husband and wife, soldier and city, occupier and the occupied. The missing files, the erased names, the silence that followed, all point to one truth. Her story was meant to be forgotten. But like the ink on her skin, it could not be washed away. Her fate remains one of the quiet mysteries of 1943, Rome. A reminder that even in the darkest days of war, faith, fear, and love could leave marks stronger than history's attempt to erase them. This has been a fictional story, told in the style of forgotten archives and lost testimonies. If you want to hear more stories like this one, subscribe to our channel and tap the bell.